Okay, let's jump right into my lab 3. Okay, we're going to expand a little bit further on the extrude tool for this lab. We're also going to take a look at edge loop modeling. We're going to explore some more of the tools in the modeling toolkit, including the multi-cut tool and the target weld tool. And we will also be going into how to merge some vertices back together if you get too many in a scene, as well as how to take a look at the count of your vertices and fix some of our objects. Okay, so let's jump right in. Let's go ahead and bring in another cube. Okay, looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and scale this up a little bit. All right, I'm going to use the right-click menu, face selection mode, and I'm going to delete one of these faces. So if you want to use the extrude tool to do what I like to call edge loop modeling, the best option is to delete a face, and then you can use the right-click menu, select edges, to click on an edge. If you double-click on an edge, it selects the entire edge loop, which is really helpful because you can use this, especially if you hit the space bar, go into this 4 views mode, especially if you go into like the front view like this. It lets you kind of change, you can change the rotation, change how a face looks, or change how these edge loops will look in your object very easily with edge loop modeling. It's a really nice way to work with that. If you wanted to select the edges on this other side and you double click one of them, it's not going to grab the edge loop because there is still a face there, which is why I deleted the face in the first place. But remember, we can always close this back up by selecting one on either side and choosing the bridge tool. Okay, let's go right-click menu again. I'm going to click on this face and delete it. Again, to see those 4 different views, I hit the space bar. I can see my perspective view right here. This is my front view, my side view, and my top view. That's really helpful sometimes. You can almost get to it over here as well if you click on this 4-view panel layout, right? But yeah, the space bar, and then if you hover over one of these, you can hit the space bar and then go into that view. So that's a really nice way to quickly get into different views. Okay, again, I want to right-click menu, edge, and we're going to grab this edge loop right here. Double-click on one of the edges to grab the entire loop, and you can tell you have the whole loop because it's highlighted in orange. Okay, I did hotkey 4 for wireframe, going back to hotkey 5 for shaded. Okay, let's use our extrude tool. So that's over here. Either click extrude or do Control E. And then I want to show you guys what happens if I use the widget this direction. Okay, so it doesn't look too bad at first, right? So if I extrude a couple of times, but eventually you can see that yes, it's pulling along this direction, but also sometimes when you use the extrude tool this way, it'll skew your edges to be a lot bigger. Like it'll also scale it as you're pulling it out. So instead of that, I'm gonna go back a couple times, Control Z a couple times. I'm gonna double click. Let's bring in our first extrude again. This is why I recommend using the move tool right away, hotkey W. Okay, and did you guys notice how I didn't move out my edges right away? So I accidentally let go. If I go ahead and try and move those out now, look what happened. Okay, so this can happen if you're using edge loop modeling to extrude things. You can accidentally grab the wrong edges. That's why it's really important to make sure right after you've hit your extrude that you pull out those edges. So I just hit Control Z a couple times to undo that extrude. Let's move this to make sure, yep, this one is just one edge loop. Let's do Control E, hotkey W, and then let's immediately grab this arrow and pull it out. Okay, that looks good. All right. The other thing you might notice is the orientation of our move tool right now, right? So I can change the orientation of my move tool sometimes. Let's extrude out a couple more times before I show you guys this. So I'm gonna extrude this, Control E, hotkey W. I'm gonna move it out a couple more times. Maybe I want to rotate this up a bit. Yeah, Control E, hotkey W. Okay, that looks good. So I'm kind of making like a big vent here. Okay, what if I go back to object mode, right click menu, object mode, and then I hit hotkey W. Do you notice how the widget isn't in the center of my object? It's still on this first area. So if I want to fix that, let's say I do want this widget to be in the center of my object, you can double click on the move tool over here or on any of these tools to reset the position of your pivot point, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and hit reset, and it automatically adjusted it to the center. And this is correlated to the world mode. If you correlate it to the object mode, right, then it's going to be based off of your object. And if you choose component and you have just part of your object selected, so just my edge loop, component is going to take a look at wherever your current edges are, and that is what the widget will be based on. So if I choose component, okay, notice how it now lines up directly with the direction of my edges rather than matching down here in our bottom left hand corner what the world is. Okay, so I'm going to switch this back to world. I prefer world for this particular scenario, but you can use the component occasionally if you need to move things in that direction. And as you can see, my green is back up again, my red is to the side, and my Z or my blue is pointed towards me. That's good. Okay. Okay, so I'm happy with that. That looks pretty good. Oops, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that tool. Sometimes, so yeah, again, I got there by double clicking. Let's make this smaller again. Oops, accidentally made this menu very large. Okay, so if that ever happens, you can just scale that back down. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to go ahead and exit out. Okay. All right, so this is how you can use the extrude tool for edge loop modeling. We will need that for Maya Lab 4, so make sure you kind of understand that not only do you need to select the whole edge loop by double clicking on one edge, but also after you do Control E, we don't want to use the widget to pull it out, okay? Not like that. We want to use hotkey W, and we want to go ahead and pull it out immediately. Because again, if we click away first and then we try and pull it out after the fact, you can get this weird kind of backward shape thing happening, okay? So just keep that in mind. The other thing we can do is we can use the Insert Edge Loop tool, okay? So up here in Mesh Tools, we have this nice Insert Edge Loop tool. If you open up the window next to it, to go into the Insert Edge Loop tool. Again, I went to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop tool window, okay? Down here at the bottom, there's this thing, this checkbox called Insert with Edge Flow, okay? So it doesn't come checked originally. That's fine. Let's leave it unchecked for now. And as you can see, since I clicked on that tool menu, it's automatically loaded on my left-hand side. This is the most recent used tool or the previous tool that you just used. So I'm going to use this tool, the Insert Edge Loop tool, to go ahead and add an edge loop on my objects. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries of clicking because you kind of need to be hovering over an edge when you're clicking on it. But if you click and you hold, you will see these green dotted lines pop up, and that's showing you where it's going to add the edge loop. And then if you release, it'll go ahead and add an edge loop there for you, which is really nice. The other thing you can do is add an edge loop in this direction, right? So let's say I want to divide this along, and because I have the space here, it is going to divide on both sides. If I didn't, I'm going to do Control Z, right click menu, face selection, and then hotkey Q, so I get out of the Insert Edge Loop tool. I'm going to delete this bottom face really quick. If I have an entire line like this without that connecting face, and then I insert an edge loop, it's not going to see that it can go all the way along the top and the bottom, so it's only going to insert that edge loop on the top. And as you can see, it is not on the bottom. So sometimes it makes sense to remove faces or add faces before you put in the Insert Edge Loop tool. But I just wanted to kind of show you guys what that looks like. Okay, what happens if I use the Insert Edge Loop tool and I do have this Insert with Edge Flow checked? Let's find out. So if I click on that, exited out. Again, to get there, I went to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, and I went to this Tool Settings window, okay? And then I checked Insert with Edge Flow. Now I'm going to add an edge loop right here. Oh, and as you can see, it popped out with the flow of my edges. So let's add one to the bottom as well. Oh, and it pops out, which is really nice. So you can use this kind of to add like more of like a cylindrical feel to your cubes. And again, we're going to go over this in more detail in MyLab 4. And it was more subtle that time because I had this edge loop here already. Okay, the other thing I want to show you guys is how to delete edge loops without leaving vertices behind. So I'm going to hit Q, hotkey Q. So again, I'm in my selection mode. And I'm going to right-click menu and choose edges, okay? So again, I can grab the whole edge loop by double-clicking on one edge. That looks good. And now if I just hit delete, you might think, oh, that worked. But then if you come in here and you hover over, you see how there's two edges here still? So let's go to the vertex mode. Oh, and it looks like it left behind all of those vertices. And I don't want that because now I have turned these shapes into n-gons because they have more than 4 sides, right? They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. These are 6-sided shapes. That makes them n-gons. So I'm going to hit Control Z and undo that delete real quick. So I deleted that edge loop. Okay, this time I'm going to select my edge loop again, right-click menu, edges, double-click. I'm going to hold down Control and then press delete. And now let's check. Okay, that deletes all of the vertices with it. So that is a nice way to get rid of an edge loop and all of the vertices with it if you hold down Control and delete. So just a nice thing to keep in mind. All right, next we're going to bring in a cube again really quick. So we're going to bring this over to the side. Let's scale this up pretty big. Okay. Awesome. Okay, that looks good. So now I want to go ahead and extrude this top face. Okay, so I'm going to do right-click selection mode, face, and then I'm going to hit hotkey Q, click on that top face, Control E, hotkey W, and let's pull this up. Okay, looks good. All right, and then I'm also going to extrude out right here, Control E, hotkey W, and pull this out to the side. Awesome. Okay, what if this happens and you're like, I wish I had, actually I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to move this down here towards my grid really quick. All right, what if you were like, I wish that I had extruded this out first before I did that one because I actually want this to be the same height. You could go back, or instead of that, a little bit easier, you could try and just extrude this shape up, right? Let's extrude it up and let's try and match it, right? That makes sense, except for you're going to run into a problem. And the main problem that you're going to run into right here is that if I move this to the side, these are clearly not attached, right? This is a separate piece from that piece. So let's say I do want these to be attached. I'm going to go ahead and hop into my front view really quick, just to make this a little bit easier to see. And I'm going to pull that up all the way to the top. Try and make that even. Oops. Let's grab our face right here. Alright, that top face. Let's try and make that even with that top piece. Okay, that's pretty good. Alright, now I need to fix this issue, okay? So I am going to make it so these are no longer separate pieces. I'm going to merge them back together. All right, so couple ways to do that. First thing I need to do is get rid of the extra inside faces. So I'm going to delete this side one because as you can see, inside your object normally, it's just kind of these black inside faces, right? And we don't want this extra face right here. So I'm going to delete that one. And it looks like there's 2 of them, so I'll delete both. Okay, that looks good. So that's better. I'm glad I deleted those inside faces. And then let's go ahead and bridge this back together. Okay, like that. All right, all better, right? Not quite. We're still having the issue where when we grab this face up here and we move it to the side, it is not attached, okay? So we want to attach these edges. Okay, one option here is to merge the vertices next to each other. So again, the other issue that you can see with this is the number of vertices. If I go ahead and select, I'm going to hit hotkey Q so it's easier to see. Wireframe mode. Okay, so it looks like I only have 2 vertices selected, but over here in my modeling toolkit it says 4. Okay, so I want to fix this to only be 2. So I can come up here to edit mesh and merge, and let's open up this window. Okay, that looks good. And this threshold, this is how close vertices are together before you want to merge them. So when I'm doing something like this, where I'm trying to fix vertices that are right on top of each other, I usually want to add a 0 before the 1 before I hit merge. So that looks good. And then watch this number right over here, and let's hit apply. Okay, so it didn't do anything because they aren't right on top of each other. So let's go ahead and remove that 0 and hit apply again. Okay, that time it did. So it did merge the vertices that were right on top of each other. So if I hit close really quick, face, and then let's go back to the shaded view, and let's grab that face again. Did it fix it? Yes, it did. Okay, so now these are no longer unattached. So that is one way to fix that issue. Awesome. Let's go back. Let me show you guys the other way. Okay, let's check. Yep, it is broken still. Okay, other option for fixing that would be this target weld tool. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and grab this edge right here, and let's just pull that edge out because I don't want to affect the outside of my object, but I want to make some space so I can see what I'm doing in here. All right, so that looks good. Now I want to weld this edge to that edge. So I'm going to click on my target weld tool right here, and I want to choose merge to target. Okay, if I choose merge to center, then both of these edges will meet in the middle, which is not what I want because I want this one to be right on top of where these ones were. So I'm going to do merge to target. I'm going to start with the one that I am merging to the target, and then I'm going to click and hold and drag over to my target edge and then release. Okay, let's see if that worked. Face mode, W, yes. Okay, so that is another way to fix that issue right there. And we can check our vertice count really quick. Let's double check, make sure we only have those 2 on top. Yep, looks like 2, and we have 2. So that is another option for fixing that. Okay, all right, that is it for this lab. So we're going to go ahead and jump into my lab 4 next. But let's go ahead and save this lab file, save scene as. Make sure you guys are saving to your H drive again. And I'm just going to call this my lab 3.